The Russian invasion of Ukraine is one of the most serious and horrific geopolitical situations in the world, specifically in Europe, of course. And the film Under the Volcano provides a really interesting and unique perspective on the invasion. The film centers around a Ukrainian father who takes his current girlfriend and his children from the previous marriage on a holiday to Tenerife. On this holiday, the family follow on social media Russia approaching the border of Ukraine and making the decision to invade. The film explores the conflict between being in a safe place and hearing the news versus their friends and families experiencing what it's like to suddenly be invaded with war. It doesn't go for the automatic shock, this is appalling. It feels disconnected at times, but then with sudden outbursts of fear and terror that they inevitably will experience. It's like they're withholding the volcano internally themselves, but occasionally erupting. Russian and Ukrainian tensions are also explored through cultural elements as well, by having a Russian family also stay at this hotel. But instead, they don't have the tension of not knowing whether they can return to their homeland. They are loving their holiday. They are drinking. They are having fun. And this tension between the two families is really put up there in the fore. And this plot is really driven effectively by the guilt of, do we stay in this hotel for as long as possible? Or do we return home? Will the father have to return home in order to fight and save his country? While do we allow the women and children go and stay with relatives in Poland, for example? And that conflict between the two, what do we do that is right? I also really love the location and how they've used the natural environment to portray this tension of the film. So whether it's a volcano exploding in the background, the waves of the shore shot beautifully, or even the fireworks, which creates this collective post-traumatic stress disorder element, as if they know what it feels like to have bombs and fire banging in the background. It's really well done from that perspective. There is also a sense of denialism and realization that they will be split. And the film does actually creep into this really interesting complex where the father feels, does he return? Does he become a wimp? Is he, supporting Russia by not returning to his homeland? It has an element of force majeure and that internal guilt that's presented in that film as well. I also really love how they use social media to follow what's going on, follow the invasion, sharing of footage with their loved ones about what is happening in Kyiv, for example, but then also choosing not to share what they are doing. They go to SeaWorld to see sea life, etc. And they don't want to share it because they know friends and family will be at home living in terror of bombings, for example. And them having a fun time could be seen as guilt again. There's some really authentic performances, in particular from the younger actors who are not professional actors, and they provide that authentic fear from having lived through the experience of starting to be invaded and understanding what it's like to live in a war from a hostile neighbour. And the film is very aware that it's not the only horrific geopolitical situation that is happening. It interlinks other world crisis that's going on by having also the experience of migrants from Africa, for example. So you've got situations such as in Sudan. And it gives a nod to them to say this is a really horrific situation happening in Ukraine, but it's not the only situation of war, terror, and horror that exists in the world. So it provides some context on which the Ukrainian invasion is happening. And despite it's based in Tenerife, about a Ukrainian family, this was actually Poland's official submission for the 97th Academy Award for Best International Feature Film, in part because the director is Polish and the Polish Film Institute funded the film. Fortunately, it did not make the final 15 shortlist, but had it been my decision, it would definitely be up there because I think it's one of the best submissions this year. Poland have only won the Oscar once, in 2015, for Ida, one of my favourite films. They also have had 15 nominations in addition to that, with 3 of them being in the last 10 years. This has included EO, Corpus Christ, and my favourite film of all time, Cold War. With a huge history in world cinema, Poland is one of the best countries who regularly submit quality films, and it's a shame they haven't had more success at the Oscars, However, I feel they continue to submit quality films like this, funded by the Polish Film Institute. I feel Poland is going to be one of those countries that is continuously included in the final 15 shortlist. It just happens that this year it did not happen.